authors, filmmakers, entertainment, and all your listening needs. Listen now to Talk Now Radio, where no topic is taboo.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk Now Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man, and joining me today is Joseph Cardillo, and we're going to be talking about his book, The 5 Seasons, and this is some pretty new material to me, folks, so I'm kind of hoping to get a chance to learn quite a bit here. But from what I can gather is there's a lot of healing properties inside of nature itself that a lot of people are not taking advantage of. And we're going to try to pick Joseph's mind apart about how do we take advantage of it and what these properties are. So, Joseph, how are you doing today?
Very well. Thanks for having me.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show and being a guest. And I'm glad to have you in my first time to interview you. So I'm hoping this will lead to some more future interviews. But before we get started, I'd like to remind everybody that you've got a website at www.josephcardillo.com. And while y'all are up there in the chat room, if you'll scroll straight down below the Return of the Ancients banner, you'll see his picture, his link, the show description, the guest bio, and a link to his book, which all this information will be moving to the archives tomorrow or the next day when after I make a picture out of the show. If y'all want to learn more, click on his link. Check out his book, whatever, you think you can do the best with. I'm sure he'd love it if you'd buy his book, and it'd probably be a handy reference item to have as well. If y'all like to call in and ask questions, the number is 832-632-7904. For those of you not listening here at the site, please come to www.talknowradio.com. Get a free membership into the site. That'll let you into the chat room. You can sign up for the free newsletter. We have forums, blogs, content section, chat room, photo gallery, about anything you really want to interact with the site. We've got it here. Come on over. You can enjoy your guests. You can post guests you want me to get, suggest topics for the show, whatever you'd like to do. We're going to have a good time. And with that, I'm going to go into the show and get back with Dr. Joseph Cardillo here. You are a doctor, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought I remembered seeing that. I wanted to make sure I didn't overstep there. So, why don't you tell us what got you involved in writing this particular book? What was your motivation, and a little something about yourself.
Well, what got me to write the book was my fascination with natural treatments for a lot of the things that that we generally use other kinds of treatments for. The United States uses more pharmaceutical drug treatments than the entire rest of the world combined. And in fact, we use drug treatment it's our first treatment of choice. So, whatever is usually wrong with us, we generally jump right to a drug treatment for it, when there's a lot of other ways, that are natural, no side effect methods of dealing both with illness and just with trying to improve our health in general. So one of the things that I was doing, there are many of us really today doing research to try to bring both the worlds of Western medicine and Eastern medicine together and try to come up with a really good package of both preventative health care and also treatment. So in my newest book, 5 Seasons, what I'm trying to explore in this is ways that we can tap into nature's secrets for health, happiness, and harmony. And so what I do in the book is I try to explain what that really means and how we can, get to it.
Okay. Now, this here kind of help that you can get from nature, what kind of stuff can it help heal? I mean, does it heal just about almost anything, or It's just kind of like a secondary aid to some things, or what?
Well, now, I'm coming at this from a psychological perspective primarily. So my background is in Eastern and Western psychology, and also in mind-body medicine, traditional mind-body medicine. So, I'm looking at this mostly from a psychological perspective. But, when the mind is healthy, the body will follow, generally, and you can affect the mind through the body too. So in the book, I talk about both. I talk about affecting the mind and making ourselves feel good and happy and content, both through the body, through things we can do, everything from exercise to nutrition, and then the other way around, making the body feel good through the mind, and various things we can do. If we're fatigued, we can use our mind to excite ourselves or to get ourselves, more energy.
So there's probably nothing then, say this kind of stuff could do to maybe help the lungs?
Well, yeah, there are lots of activities in my book and in other books that can help in that regard. Yeah, can help build up the immune system and just help with that in general. Yeah.
Open up airways, maybe, or something. No, I asked this because I have
exactly.
COPD.
But I'm not going to pretend that either. I don't want to pretend that the study that I've done and the research that I've done is always a standalone treatment.
Right.
I've talked about this with many people. In some cases it can be a standalone treatment. I recently wrote an article on how you can use natural sound to relieve things like migraine headaches and insomnia and so on, even anxiety and panic disorders. But do they work all the time? They don't work for everybody, but they do work for many people as a standalone treatment. They could work as a complementary treatment and decrease the need for meds. And sometimes, people really do need the pharmaceutical treatment. So.
Well, yeah, but I have an old saying that every little bit helps.
Every little bit helps. I mean, if I can lessen my treatment, my pharmaceutical treatment, I'm all that much better off. And the other thing is too, even if it doesn't lessen the pharmaceutical treatment at all, we know there's plenty of research. We know that when you're feeling positive and if you're feeling good and you're feeling that you have some hand in what you're doing, the pharmaceuticals will work better and quicker. We know that.
Okay. Now, the question in the chat room is, how do I do all the things you mentioned in Skype? Was there something you mentioned that, or was that a question of me? Maybe somebody will clarify that one later. That one seemed a little unusual. Going back to the others, so basically, a person getting out and taking a walk every day would be a good thing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, what would you recommend them doing while on this walk if, say, they had depression?
Well, one of the first things that I recommend is that, and this is, it's really kind of, it's kind of interesting to me because it's one of the things that most of us, including myself, don't do. If you're just taking a walk, one of the things we might want to put our mind to is how are the various things that we're looking at and the various things that we're hearing, the various scents and so on, how are those things in the environment affecting us? So if we could take a look inside our mind and also inside our body, how are they making us feel? Are they, for example, calming us down? Is there something in the environment that I can look at that calms me down? Something else that might energize me, and so on. Is there something that if I'm feeling kind of anxious or fearful, and I experience this in the environment, or I look at something in the environment, does it quell my worries? does it quell my fears? And so, I start to pay attention to what things in the environment affect me in what way. And that's usually the first thing I tell people to do. And it's really simple. And then where I go in my book and also in my research is I try to put a little science behind that and try to help people take those things that affect them and amplify, make the effect more dramatic. So if it's something that calms you down, I can put a little science behind it and show you how to make it calm you down a lot more effectively and a lot more dramatically. Or if it's something that peps you up, I can put a little science behind it and show you how to activate that, a little more dramatically. And how to use it in some situations where you can use it outside of the situation where you're experiencing it, say on the walk.
Okay, I think she's clarifying her question in the chat room. She was saying the stuff about boost alertness, relieve boredom, and increase relaxation, recognize when conflict is beneficial, deal with the ebb and flow of other people, fight off mood swings. I remember when you were saying all of this. That's what she wants to know.
Sure.
How you do it in Skype.
Sure. This is actually a really good question, with what we've been talking about. So let's say that you're taking a walk, and let's say that you walk by a fountain or a stream in a park. Let's say that you walk by a stream. And you sit down and you listen to the water and you notice that it has a calming effect on you. If you keep experiencing that, if you go there regularly for just a little while, your brain will get used to that calming effect that the water has on you, and it'll start to remember it. And that's the first step. Then the next step would be to try to take a look at the surroundings in that area, in that environment, and to see what elements or factors in the environment, what colors, for example, what fragrances might also have that same calming effect on you, and to take note of that. So as you go into that environment, pay attention to those things. Definitely the water sounds, and then definitely the colors and the scents, and try to make it as sensory as possible. Then what you can do, and I actually did this with my daughter when she was very young, when she was about, one of my daughters, my youngest, when she was 2.5 years old, we actually used to go and visit a river along, it ran along the Berkshire Mountains, and we would go and visit the river, and she'd listen to the water sounds, and they had a really nice calming effect on her. Then we did, what I've been talking about, paid attention to the greenery and some of the scents and so on. And so what I did, and what your listeners can do, is I took the sounds of the water from iTunes. You can go to iTunes or you can record it yourself. I went to iTunes and I downloaded water sounds that were similar to what we were hearing. We took some pictures of the environment that she was in, the greenery and so on, and then I put it together on her iPod for her. And so she had an iPod with pictures of the environmental pictures that were calming for her, and also I put the download as a sort of soundtrack to a slideshow that I made on her iPod for her. And so when she got a little older, she's able to listen to the calming sounds of the water and look at the pictures on the iPod, and it has an almost instant calming effect on her because, we did it so many times. We did it enough times to send her mind the message that, this is where we want it to go when we want it to calm down. Or whenever you hear that sound, you'll feel a calming effect. So now, when she gets older, she'll have, she can carry something as simple as an iPod in her pocket and use it to calm herself down, whenever she needs it, if she's going into an office meeting or she's, if she's trying to study for for a test or anything like that, or just, in a normal everyday event, and she needs to calm down, she just needs to play her iPod for about 7 to 10 minutes, and it'll calm her down. And no side effects.
Well,
so that's one thing that you can do.
Yeah, you had me thinking, though, for that one in there, people like me and my wife, we live here in the big city, Houston, Texas, not a lot of rivers around. But, I know that it's proven fact that rivers, waterfalls,
absolutely,
creeks, and all of that, the noise is very relaxing to people, as one of the most relaxing things in nature. If you
absolutely.
could burn a soundtrack of that off of a website somewhere and load it onto your iPod or burn it to a CD and put it in your Walkman, you could carry that with you.
That's right, and you only need to play it for about 7 to 10 minutes, maybe 12 minutes at the most, and it'll calm you down. The thing that people have to realize is you have to do that for about 2 weeks. 2 to 3 weeks before you start to get a maximum effect off of it. You'll start to feel a gradual effect, but after about 2 or 3 weeks, you'll start to feel a much greater effect. And that's the difference, let's say, between taking a pill and using one of these methods. But then once it's ingrained in your brain, you'll get the full effect as soon as you hear it. So it takes a couple of weeks for your mind to get used to that. And then it'll work for you. Now, you can do the same thing to pep yourself up. One of the things I talk about in my book is the genetic factor, and the genetic factor is real. We can, and it's kind of fun because we can discuss these things, say, with our mothers, which is what it's mostly connected to. We can, the sounds and scents, and visuals, colors, and so on that were attractive to our mothers are also attractive to us genetically. So if there were certain natural sounds, like a waterfall, or whatever, maybe the sound of rain was soothing to someone's mother, especially while she was pregnant. Then those same sounds will be soothing to us too. Same with scent. And if there were sounds that were irritating, or scents, or colors, and so on, those same things would be irritating to us. Just kind of like pharmaceuticals that work for our mothers are generally going to work for us, and those that don't work so well probably won't work for us either.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's very neat, and it's an interesting little thing we can do, and it's very bonding and wonderful, really.
Okay. Well, one of the people in the chat room was asking if these sounds could be piped into the prison PA system that would be beneficial to the inmates.
The problem with that is that the sounds that might be soothing for me could be irritating to someone else. So it's a very kind of individual. It has a very individual effect on people. The sound, scent, all that has a pretty individual effect. Most people, we could say that most people like the sound of water just because, we spent most of the time, we spent all of our time while we were, while our bodies were being created in the womb, in water. And so the water sound is pretty soothing to most people. But it's still pretty individualized. So that's the problem with that. The same with music. Music that is soothing to me and music that can make me alert and feel organized, might torture somebody else. So got to watch out with that one.
I can tell you right now, heavy metal tortures me.
Yeah, Yeah.
That is just way too harsh.
Yeah. but if the way this works, the science behind it is as long as you like the sound, it'll work. But you got to like it, and the more you like a certain sound, the more it'll work.
So the kind of things your book is suggesting you do are the kind of things that you'd think people would be attracted to doing anyway because they enjoy it.
Yeah, we sort of have a natural attraction to a lot of this stuff anyway, which is why I enjoyed writing this book for people so much, because we already have a sort of special appreciation for nature. And so I said, well, if I can put a little science behind this and show people how to take these things, like make the recording on their iPod and then play it before an office meeting. If you do it enough times, you won't have to play it before. Your brain will just start, as soon as you go to that meeting, your brain will just go there automatically on its own, because you pretty much sent it the message that you wanted to do that.
So it could also work as a form of self-hypnosis?
Could, yes it could. It could. And, I use it a lot, I call it attention training. But really what we're doing is conditioning our mind to work the way we want it to in a particular situation.
Okay. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was also the title of your book, The 5 Seasons. How did you happen to select such a title?
Yes. In traditional Chinese medicine and really Asian medicine, there are five energy movements. There are 5 energy cycles that in Eastern traditions are believed to be in all things. So if the largest thing imaginable, a universe, multi-universes, to the smallest thing imaginable, a subatomic particle, would all contain and be driven by these 5 energy cycles. And in Asian tradition, it's referred to as the 5 universal energies. And these energies are displayed beautifully in the 5 seasons. So we can see each of those 5 energies in a sort of macro sense when we experience the seasons. But they also occur even in the, even at the cellular level in the human body. So everything is going to go through these 5 energy cycles and be driven by them. But basically, if you imagine a clock, and if you go to the 9 o'clock position on a clock and put a little dot there, that would be spring. So spring would be the first season, and as the clock is circular, spring would be an upward moving energy, or what we call a rising, robust, high-powered, high-torque energy. And it's the kind of energy that we need to begin new things or to seed new ideas. Then at the 12 o'clock position, if you put a dot there, that would be summer. And summer would be the peak of this rising energy that we all feel yearly, but also throughout the day and even throughout various times of day. So you'd have your peak energy, which is the summer cycle. And then the energy starts to come down. So if you're imagining a clock and you're going from 9 o'clock, which is spring, to 12 o'clock, which is summer, and then you're starting to come down to the 3 o'clock position, that would be autumn at the 3 o'clock position. And so now the energy is declining or going downward. And autumn is a time for gathering all that we've grown with spring and summer energy. And so in autumn we gather the good, but we also try to get rid of what's not so good. A lot of the things that we grow, whether it's yearly or even throughout the day, a lot of the things that we grow are not necessarily good for us, or they're not good for us at the moment, so we either need to put them on the back burner or dispose of them entirely. So the autumn, or the declining energy, is a time when we can kind of step back and take a look at things with a little more coolness and gather the good. And then winter would be in the 6 o'clock position. So now directly south of summer. So at the rock bottom would be winter, and that's the lowest energy, the coolest energy of the cycles, and also the most creative energy. So that's the energy that we use for creativity and creation. And then the cycle starts again with spring. So you go from winter, which is in the 6 o'clock position, to rise up to spring, which is at 9. Dead center, right in the center of this clock, would be a circle or a dot, and that would be late summer. And late summer is the 5th season. And in Eastern medicines and psychology, the 5th season is more or less the headquarters of it all. It represents the essence of who we are. In Western psychology, we call it self-awareness, or the self. But this is the headquarters of who we are, and it's this, the 5th season, that coordinates all of the other 4.
That's very interesting, but for various reasons.
It is, because as we go in, as you see these 5 energy movements throughout the day, even we get up in the morning, we have a robust energy, we're trying to get pumped up, we seed the day with new ideas and new plans and new things and so on, and we go through that whole cycle of energy. But the cycle that's the most important one is the center, which coordinates it all. I can grow a million things, but none of them are any good if they're not connected to who I am and who I want to be. So.
Well, yeah, but also you got me to thinking that back in ancient times, the circumpunt was one of the original symbols for God, which was a round circle with a dot right smack in the center, which is really kind of like a handless clock face. Yeah.
That's a great concept, and I'm glad that you brought that forward, because that center concept, we call it in Western psychology, we call it self or self-awareness, but some people call that the soul, and other people might call that the mind of God. Yeah.
So that was basically symbolizing the way to God, or kind of like Jesus would say, seek ye the kingdom of heaven within yourself?
Absolutely, entirely. Absolutely. So really inside this whole energy circle that we're trying to activate and use to our benefit, inside this whole thing, that center is the divine plan. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I had a question in chat from somebody, but I told him I was going to ask you mine first before I forgot. And then when you started talking about the clock face, you gave me a second one, which I just asked, and I never got to my first one, so let's get to it real quick. Another thing you brought to my mind when I was listening to you was when you was talking about 5 energies. Because I started thinking about 5 energies, 5 fingers, 5 toes. How many times does this 5 repeat? 5 senses, in other words.
Yes.
So, is there any tie-ins going on here?
Yeah, there is, and there's some very interesting tie-ins. First of all, in China, the word China itself means center, which is kind of interesting. A lot of people are, they love that. It means middle, the word China, or 5th. But in Eastern traditions, the number 5 is kind of like a magical number. And it's kind of like 3, like the 3-leaf clover. The number 5 is a magical number, and it's a good number. It's a positive number. So yeah, there's 5 energies, 5 traditional animals, 5 traditional movements, the 5 elements. So the number 5 in Asian traditions is a very magical number. It's kind of like, and the number 4 is like our number 13.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So
that's
a lot
very
of times
interesting because there's the 13 Illuminated Families Day.
Very well. Thanks for having me.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show and being a guest, and I'm glad to have you in my first time to interview you, so I'm hoping this will lead to some more future interviews. But before we get started, I'd like to remind everybody that you've got a website at www.josephcardilla.com. And while y'all are up there in the chat room, if you'll scroll straight down below the Return of the Ancients banner, you'll see his picture, his link, the show description, the guest bio, and a link to his book, which all this information will be moving to the archives tomorrow or the next day when after I make a picture out of the show. If y'all want to learn more, click on his link, check out his book, whatever, you think you can do the best with. I'm sure he'd love it if you'd buy his book, and it'd probably be a handy reference item to have as well.
For authors, filmmakers, entertainment, and all your listening needs. Listen now to Talk Now Radio, where no topic is taboo.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk Now Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man, and joining me today is Joseph Cardillo. And we're going to be talking about his book, The 5 Seasons, and this is some pretty new material to me, folks, so I'm kind of hoping to get a chance to learn quite a bit here. But from what I can gather is there's a lot of healing properties inside of nature itself that a lot of people are not taking advantage of, and we're going to try to pick Joseph's mind apart about how do we take advantage of it and what these properties are. So, Joseph, how are you doing? If you'd like to call in and ask questions, the number is 832-632-7904. For those of you not listening here at the site, please come to www.talknowradio.com. Get a free membership into the site. That'll let you into the chat room. You can sign up for the free newsletter. We have forums, blogs, content section, chat room, photo gallery. About anything you really want to interact with the site, we've got it here. Come on over. You can enjoy your guests. You can post guests you want me to get, suggest topics for the show, whatever you'd like to do. We're going to have a good time. And with that, I'm going to go into the show and get back with Dr. Joseph Cardilla here. You are a doctor, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought I remembered seeing that. I wanted to make sure I didn't overstep there. So, why don't you tell us what
illness and just with trying to improve our health in general. So, one of the things that I was doing, there are many of us really today doing research to try to bring both the worlds of, Western medicine and Eastern medicine together and try to come up with a really good package of both preventative health care and also treatment. So in my newest book, 5 Seasons, what I'm trying to explore in this is ways that we can tap into nature's secrets for health, happiness, and harmony. And so what I do in the book is I try to explain what that really means and how we can, get to it.
Okay. Now, this here kind of help that you can get from nature, what kind of stuff can it help heal? I mean, does it heal just about almost any? Got you involved in writing this particular book? What was your motivation? And a little something about yourself.
Well, what got me to write the book was my fascination with natural treatments for a lot of the things that that we generally use other kinds of treatments for. The United States uses more pharmaceutical drug treatments than the entire rest of the world combined. And and in fact, we use drug treatment it's our first treatment of choice. So, whatever is usually wrong with us, we generally jump right to a drug treatment for it, when there's a lot of other ways, that are natural, no side effect methods of dealing both with